I'm visiting with Tim Goldhammer, a candidate for City Council in Ward 1. Tim, why are you running for City Council?
Well, I decided to run after talking to several people, and they all said in an affirmative way that I would make a good city council candidate. And so after discussing with my family and some of my friends, it just became a clear thing to do to represent the interests of Ward 1 to the city.
What special skills or knowledge would you bring to city government?
Absolutely. So I've worked with the area community theater and dealt with nonprofit budgets through that organization and a few others. And so making sure that we have a balanced budget, but then also just the hospitality. I've worked in the hospitality industry for the last 10 years, and being able to listen to people and understand complaints and trying to figure out amicable solutions for people is something that I'm very passionate about.
What do you believe should be the city's top 3 priorities over the next 3 years?
Well, so I think the first thing that we need to figure out is what we're going to do with Lake Mitchell. A lot of those questions kind of remain up in the air based on what the fire report comes back. I would like to say that I want to fix Lake Mitchell no matter what, but I'm just too fiscally conservative to say that. I need to know how much it's going to cost and what the kind of payback to the city will be for that. I think infrastructure and water is something that also needs to be looked at, what our water systems can do in the future and making sure that everyone has clean drinking water. And then I think the third thing is just making sure that our Parks and Rec department have the opportunity to continue great programs that they put on and then make sure that those programs are at as low cost as possible to the citizens of Mitchell.
Regarding Lake Mitchell improvement, how much do you believe the city should be willing to spend once a viable option is agreed upon?
Well, so I think one of the things that hasn't been done that I would like to see done is kind of an economic feasibility study on Lake Mitchell, what it brings to the city. I think that could answer a lot of questions on what we should spend to fix it. I think that for most people I've talked to, the $10 million range bonded out over a number of years makes sense if it fixes it for a longer period of time. Outside of that, I don't really want to say one way or the other because it depends on what the cost to the number of years and what kind of reinvestment every year we have to make into it.
Now, what have been your sources of information regarding the Lake Mitchell project?
Well, so when I first heard about Lake Mitchell, one of the things that I did was I called somebody who sells chemicals. He sells the kind of chemicals that you normally put in to deal with the algae issues in Lake Mitchell. And so that was the first thing I did. And what he told me was that really wasn't a viable option for Mitchell. It's the watershed's too big and you're going to have a continued issue. And really, it's the chemical bond at the bottom of the lake that are causing the issues now. And so I would have looked not only to see what other areas were doing, I also would like to see there's a group out of New York right now that is offered a $10 million prize to someone coming up with the best solution for fixing green algae. And I would like to see what the results of that are as far as finding sources to fix the lake.
So what are your thoughts of placing the final decision regarding the Lake Mitchell project in the voters' hands?
You know, I think as long as it's solution-based. I don't think that the vote should be we're either for fixing Lake Mitchell or not doing anything. It needs to come up with some kind of solution because what we have right now is a cesspool north of town, and we need to figure out a way to not have that hazard near our town.
Mitchell Main Street and Beyond is working toward establishing a business improvement district to raise funds for improving Mitchell's Main Street area. What financial commitment should the city offer to help the project succeed, or should the city steer clear?
I think that if the city offered low-interest loans, that would be the best solution, and then have some kind of reversion clause that if the buildings were to be sold before the loans were paid back, that they would have first stake in the monies gained off those properties.
What are your thoughts regarding improving the city's infrastructure over the next 5 years?
I think the infrastructure is one of the things that really needs to be focused on. When you look at what we've done as a city over the last few years, we've focused on gaining back kind of our budget to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. We balanced it, we zeroed it, and we even grew kind of our reserves up a little bit. And now it's time to start focusing on not necessarily growing our reserves, leveling the reserves, but also focusing on infrastructure, making sure that it's working well.
Tim, how do you feel the city council is doing in setting the city's spending plan, and what ideas do you have for improving it?
Well, so I think the city is doing a pretty good job right now. Like I said, a few years ago, they balanced the budget and grew the reserves. And so I think that making sure the city just stays even keel with that plan I think that coming up with ways to make the Corn Palace more fiscally responsible is something that I would be good at. I have a background in hospitality, and I've worked with the theater, and we deal with some of the same issues. And so trying to partner with them to make sure that we're doing the best we can to make sure that programs that are losing money currently stop losing money, or at least we cut back the amount of money they're losing.
Tim, what do you feel your role as a city councilor would be in maintaining order and decorum during council meetings, and would you support additional training to achieve that goal?
I think the council members should take that upon themselves to get that training. I wouldn't necessarily allocate funds or resources to that, but I would say that my goal would be to represent Ward 1. And, the phrase, what would Jesus do? Sometimes slipping over the tables is what needs to get done to get the point across, but I don't think that would be an everyday type of thing.
So do you believe city councilors should focus on the needs and interests of their wards or the city as a whole?
Really, the council balances itself out. It needs to be kind of that Zen place where the council member is focusing on what's best for their ward, but sometimes you need to vote with the city. But I think that's why we have 6 or 8 council members. So if 2 say this is terrible for my ward, it doesn't go through. But if it's bad for 2 or 3 wards and it's better for the city, then I don't necessarily see it being better for the city if 3 wards are losing and 1 is gaining. And so my job as a city council member is to represent my ward. And so, yeah, that might be a no vote for something that's better for the overall city. But that's why there's a balance on city council.
Tim, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I'm just really passionate about Mitchell. My whole family, my parents met here. They were married at Holy Family. My grandparents lived here for many years, auctioneers in the area. And, my great-grandfather actually, when he came to America, settled in Mitchell. And so my family lineage is all the way back. And I've just always really loved this town. I've always enjoyed going to the Corn Palace. I think it's a fantastic place. And so I think Mitchell has a lot of great things going for it, and I just want to keep it going in the right direction.
And that's Tim Goldhammer. He's a candidate for Ward 1 City Council.